Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about FANG companies. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, should we call developers working at a FANG company software engineers while referring to those that are non-FANG companies as software mechanics? Because the former solves more complex engineering problems than the latter. If not, why? Well, because the job description to start off with is the same. It's literally the same. It would be basically, to me, it would be the same thing as saying that we should invent another term that means something other than junior, mid-level, senior. It's the same problem it just comes back to me all over and over. Like, what is a senior? What is a mid-level? These terms are subjective, and I argue that the that's never gonna stop being the case. It's the problem of definition, like where do you draw the line for one term and another, and that is always a very complicated topic. I argue that it's usually a complex mix between what current trends are showing, like use some vague understanding of what a baseline is, and the individuals in question who is asked to define the thing. If you want to have an exercise in patience and definitions, then try to negotiate a legal contract or try to define OKRs or like the meaning. Like, I can only imagine how long it has to take for people working in, say, the movie industries or things like that to define like what are the actual lines that are going to be said on screen by the actors or screenplay writers and things like that. Like, to agree, if you're more than one person, on what terminology to use and the exact words to use, that is, well, I've always found those sorts of situations to be super, super complicated. Like, it takes forever. The longest time I ever spent in, and this was OKRs, the longest time I've ever I could not believe it. It took 5 full days, and I'm not joking. Full time, morning, like, apart from lunch and stuff like that, and dinner, of course, to evening. We were at a company resort. It took my team 5 days to define what we were going to do for the coming 3 months. Not plan it, not discuss details or technical things, just to express what we were going to do on paper. It was insane. And as you can imagine, I argue that this is the same sort of situation. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing I would like to say is that there seems to be a presumption here that what a person in a FANG company does is more complicated than what a person outside of a FANG company does, which is the thing that I've been saying a few times, guys. Like, just do this for me. Go to a Google project. You can go to YouTube. You can go to the search engine, or you can go to something like Gmail or whatever. Like, go to any of those websites and go and look at the code. Open up the inspector and go in and see what you see. Now, most of it is probably going to be optimized assets, I'm assuming, but I'm pretty sure you're going to find some stuff there that you recognize. And if you recognize that, congratulations, you just understood how Google does things for some of their major projects. So this idea that what you're doing in Google, like all of it, as I've said before, guys, everything comes down to the specifics. Because not every single person in a FANG company or whichever company you're referring to in these higher tiers of companies that have these prestigious brands and so forth, not everybody there is going to be working on the next super engine for the next super project or like an AI engine or stuff like that, because as I've said before, like, if you compare like what the FANG companies are doing now to what, say, OpenAI is doing, like which I argue is probably the next generation, like they are like wiping the floor with the FANG companies. They have no shot in. That's why they're trying to buy them. And for this exact reason, what I'm saying is that you believe that these are the creme de la creme companies, and you believe that because their products are well known. You have no knowledge whatsoever what it means, if you're not working for them, of course, what it actually means to work there. I have friends who work for these companies, guys, and I have coworkers who work for these companies, and I can tell you that these are really, really good software developers, but it's not like they work at the level where it's just incomprehensible to everybody outside of those organizations. It is a job, and as anybody who's working for any company will tell you, it doesn't matter which company you work for as much as what you're doing in that company. That is a very important distinction to make, and there, as I've said before, there's quite a lot of companies who do things that are vastly more complicated than quite a lot of the things that the FANG companies are doing. Not all, like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like my favorite projects, like on products, many of them come from some of the FANG companies for sure. So I would never go as far as to say that I like dismiss the work that the people at these companies are doing, or like their projects are amazing and so forth. I love a lot of their stuff, but as I said, I don't think it is quite so easy, like that I honestly, I think this is, it seems to me that this is the sort of question that is asked by people who are not actual software developers, who have no real experience with these things. Because, as I like to say, guys, software development is like magic to most people. But once you are a wizard, like when you are a software developer, once you are a wizard, you understand that practically every single company are doing, like, they're using more or less the same tools, and they're developing in more or less the same way. There are different levels of wizards, like people are differently good at different things, and they're good at designing systems and like fixing bugs and stuff like that. So you have different talent levels of wizards, but it's still the same magic. Doesn't matter where you go. So what I want you to take away from this is that I don't think that you will get far with your idea of calling people mechanics, because engineer is such an established term. One part is because, as I said, it would just be the same thing that is happening now. If you wanted to have a better term, you can try to jump on the bandwagon with principal engineer, staff engineer, and like there's probably going to come other terms like site reliability engineer. Like there's all kinds of terms going around, guys, that where we're trying to sort of distinguish one level from another, and I always kind of laugh at that and say that, yeah, congrats, like, and you've heard me say this before, guys, it doesn't really matter what your title is, apart from, of course, it does matter because some people put, as I said, emphasis on these things, and they have their own sort of understanding of it, and then it's a whole different video to talk about, okay, so what expectations do you usually have there? But for the most part, it's a combination of the specific individuals involved in the defining of the term, and some general current zeitgeist situation where like this is roughly what we consider someone to be at this point, like the baseline. So you know, it meant once upon a time it meant to be an asset meant one thing in a certain level of skill, whereas today the skills, well, as far as I understood, have increased. So 100 years ago, you may not have been able to compete at the levels that we are competing at today, but you were still an athlete, just as, you know, a quote-unquote good product 50 years ago is probably not as good by today's standards. So these things, they move, they are liquid things that then the terminology changes over time, or at least what we define things as. And then the last thing I want to mention is that remember, guys, that there are a lot of talented people in the FANG companies, but there's like, it's not like they're doing something there that you wouldn't be able to comprehend. If you are a seasoned software developer who really know your stuff, I promise you that you could work in one of these companies. I'm not saying that you could handle every single project. I'm not saying that they don't have things that are like at research levels and stuff like that, because they do. But not every single system that exists in these large organizations, and I don't care which one it is, it doesn't have to be a FANG company, is going to require a genius level software developer to work on them. As I said, if you really want to fact check some stuff, go and take a look at some of the projects and just read some of the source code. A lot of the source is open source. So you can go and check exactly what they're reading, what they're doing, and things like that. Not for every single system, but for quite a lot of it. And I promise you, unless you are, of course, very inexperienced, very new and stuff like that, my guess is that if you come back once or twice throughout your career, you're going to start to see that you understand more and more of it. And I promise you guys, it's not like it's not going to be a massive difference regardless of where you go. Projects differ, languages and stacks and stuff like that differ, but the work itself, after 10 years, I can tell you that at this point, every single new job, there's a few things that differ. Requirements may change and design system, like system designs and stuff like that may differ, but the core of it is very similar, practically all the time. Have a great day.